Welcome to today's Software AG webcast titled Portfolio Management and IT Transparency for Government. Today's webcast will be presented by Dr. Ulrich Kalix, Senior Vice President of Product Management and R&D at Software AG. As we move through today's presentation, I invite you to submit any questions that you may have via the Q&A box, which is located in the lower right corner of your WebEx session. We will do our best to answer all of your questions. In the event that we're not able to answer your question, your submission will be recorded, and today's presenter will be back in touch with you as soon as possible. Additionally, today's presentation is being recorded. This recording will be available to you via YouTube should you wish to access it later on. To receive a copy of the YouTube link, please send an email to the webinar host. Before I turn today's presentation over to Uli, I would like to briefly introduce you to Software AG. Software AG offers the first end-to-end digital business platform based on open standards with integration, process management, adaptive application development, real-time analytics, and IT portfolio management as core building blocks to help customers build their digital futures today. With over 45 years of customer-centric innovation, Software AG is ranked as a leader in many innovative and digital technology categories. Software AG has more than 4,300 employees and is active in 70 countries. It is now my pleasure to welcome Uli Kalix.
So we will be talking about how portfolio management and IT transparency can make a difference for government and public sector companies. And I was just going into identifying some of the most critical concerns for government and public sector companies. Starting from the left upper corner, implementing a cloud-first mandate means understanding where should I be leveraging opportunities that come with the cloud concept. Centralizing federated services talks about how can we create economies of scale, obviously within an agency, but even more importantly across agencies. Improving user experiences means how can we make sure that the citizens that we are working with feel at ease when doing consuming services, conducting activities through our offerings, our electronic offerings. How can we bring this to people that are increasingly mobile and that may want to conduct these services pretty much anytime, any place? How can we do all this by making sure we are not compromising security? And that means specifically you're not compromising security of the data that we are processing for the citizens that we provide services for. And then, of course, many of public sector companies and government agencies have started very early on with embracing technology to create economies of scale, to automate processes. And now many of these systems have come to age and require modernization. So how can portfolio management, planning, transparency help wrapping somebody in support of those critical concerns for public sector companies and government agencies? That's an interesting chart as it shows where the different states across the United States are with regard to their maturity in embracing technology and leveraging technology to the better of the relationship to their citizens, to successfully provide services to citizens that can be easily consumed, that can be easily onboarded, and that can be easily interacted with. Following the standard school grades, you can see how the different states obviously are scoring differently, with the red patch being the most adored ones. And actually one of those red patch states I will be talking about a little more in detail, which is Ohio, which is a grade A IT, which has a grade A IT organization and landscape, and it can also be used as a means to illustrate how IT optimization strategies can be turned into results. So Ohio reworked their IT spend from an 80-20 split between infrastructure and applications to a 50-50 split. That means reducing the cost of servers, reducing the cost of data centers by a great amount has helped Ohio to have more funding available to go into applications, and it's the applications that actually enable citizens to consume services, to interact with services, to onboard to services. That was done predominantly by consolidating 26 IT environments that were distributed across 32 data centers across the state of Ohio into a single centralized state of Ohio computing center, which in and by itself resulted in efficiency gains of nearly 1,000%. Establishing a mobile and cloud-first strategy has helped reducing that footprint, as much of the footprint could actually be moved into cloud services or could be moved into cloud infrastructure. And further development along this optimization strategy will now drive the adoption of IoT. And first steps have already been completed successfully. So Ohio has this OHGO app that connects sensors and traffic information as being collected in real time for the benefit of people using highways across Ohio to understand, okay, where are congestions, where are construction places, and how should they be picking their routes optimally to accommodate for road conditions and to have optimal driving patterns. So what are the benefits in aiming for an optimized IT? On the one hand, and I think we've seen this with the example of Ohio quite nicely, is you can hope for a streamlined portfolio, and we'll see some more examples as we go through the rest of the material. You will also have a better way of understanding where the risks are and preparing and securing for the risks that you have to be prepared for. And that could be either by virtue of reducing the complexity of your portfolio, because every reduction in complexity inevitably means I have a reduced number of attack vectors that I'm vulnerable against. But it could equally be that for the technologies that I'm left with, I actually am much better prepared to understand and to spend the time and efforts to understand what the risk vectors are and how should I best protect against such vulnerabilities. You can gain improvements along the process dimension as well. as you are optimizing your IT, you can take new looks at how best should we be positioning technology in supporting a certain business process, in supporting a certain customer or citizen interaction. And with this, you will then also understand, okay, now where should we be leveraging mobile, for instance, because we know that this is an activity that oftentimes, or in the majority of cases, citizens will be conducting when they are on the go. Understand what are reasonable operational expenses for the specific processes and activities and capabilities that are core to the government agency or public service company. So that means understanding where is it justified to have higher IT expenses versus where should we be looking at reducing the per transaction costs that we are incurring by providing this as an automated service. And that obviously goes into back into the court of what is our strategy. So where do we want to excel in the relationship that we have with our citizens, make it particularly attractive for citizens to come and consume our services. Well-founded CapEx also means for the money that we have, that the money that we can afford spending, we need to understand where is the biggest bang for the buck, and where will we be able to have the maximum impact on attaining our strategy. And then lastly, how can we establish a sustainable IT governance, which means how can we make sure that we are leveraging the knowledge and the expertise of the many, often hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals that we have distributed across the organization? How can we empower them to take decisions in their respective area of control and expertise? And how can we still make sure that in that federated model of decision making, we keep everybody informed about what the downstream effects and consequences of such decisions are? So with all this, we will improve our ability to provide continuous services. We will improve in meeting our service specifications and also understand in how those service specifications should evolve further into the future. We are able to deliver new service solutions faster, and we are able to adjust those service solutions to newly upcoming demands and requirements from the consumer citizens at a much faster pace. And we are able to look into leveraging innovative technology solutions for improved services at a much higher pace. Now, let's look at the barriers to IT optimizations as we find them in many of government agencies and public sector companies these days. The hindrance, by and large, is the complexity and the very integrated nature of the IT portfolio that these organizations own. And I'm demonstrating this with the chart here at the right-hand side. If you look at this, this is a square with 4 flanks, and each of the flanks articulate one of the core pillars of every of these organizations. So at the top, we would see what makes out the services that the government agency or public sector company actually offers. What makes out these services is first and foremost the capabilities. But it's also the strategies that we have defined for ourselves as to how these services should change and how these capabilities should change. Which capabilities do we need to bring aboard because we're currently missing them? Which are capabilities that we may no longer require because they are not being asked for that strongly any longer? Or where we have a significant reduction in the number of transactions or a significant increase in the number of transactions. And all this obviously then is translated into what we call demands, or what you might also call requirements. Then on the left flank of this square, we have the frontier of technology. So this is all the applications, this is all the technologies that we're able to master, it's all the devices that we know how to deal with, and that often could be devices that we don't even own, but are the devices of our consumer citizens. Then thirdly, at the bottom, we have the frontier of change, and that means how are we able to change? How much of change are we able to absorb in a given period of time, for instance, or across a constituency of organizational entities that we comprise of? What are the skills that we can bring to bear? And what are those skills for making the change happen? But equally important, what are the skills that we can keep on the job as we have succeeded with that change? And then lastly, we talk about the constraints that this portfolio has to exist in. And those constraints are by and large budgetary, financial constraints, regulatory constraints, and risk constraints. Now, what you see in the middle is a hairball that I could have made much more complex. I just got bored drawing these arrows forth and back here. Essentially, everything connects to everything else here. So if I have a capability like a search service, for instance, I would have one or more applications enabling and supporting this capability. I might have strategies how I want to improve this. I have regulatory constraints as to what the information is that I may retain for that search, or how information has to be played back to this search, et cetera, et cetera. So everything is connected to everything else. Now, what we unfortunately are used to in the organizations that we live in on a daily basis is a lot of stovepiping. So I have somebody who is responsible for that search service. And I have somebody else who is responsible for the applications that are enabling that search service. And I have yet other people responsible for perhaps the roadmaps, et cetera, et cetera. So because these teams are all working in silos, we have quite a bit of errors and conflicts, and those easily translate into trouble and cost. Secondly, we have organizations and people that are responsible for these aspects that are working with a very limited, often very outdated and disintegrated amount of data. And in our complex, fast-moving world that we're living in, a world that is gaining complexity by the day, taking decisions on outdated, disintegrated, low-quality data is a poor basis for decision making. When we look at the understanding that people have in what is there today, most of the time they only know what they're dealing with immediately themselves. And that means there is a reduced or non-existent understanding of overlaps and redundancies that exist in the IT support today, or that may be the result of certain investment decisions and strategies that we are taking today. And all this results in IT projects being known for not meeting their goals or failing outright completely. So what can we do about it? We can first try to establish a truly integrated IT portfolio. When we do this, we will have to bring stakeholders that are federated and disintegrated across our organizations together in a virtual collaboration space. And we do this by bringing them with the information assets that they own into that collaboration space. So architecture comes with, for instance, the application portfolio that they own, or including the technology portfolio, or including the infrastructure portfolio. Services comes with the services portfolio that exists in the customer and citizen-facing side of the organization. And they come with the understanding how existing application and technology portfolios enable and stand up these citizen services. We have project management and project leadership join in with the program portfolio, with the project investment portfolio that they own, to understand how transformation is going to be impacted and how future projects are changing the rest of the portfolio. And then lastly, we have finance and risk functions that come in with the understanding of what are the applicable risks and regulations, and how can we provide financial perspective into the integrated portfolio. Now, when we look into portfolio management, the advantage is that this is something that many people know, because portfolio management has been an invention from the 1920s in financial services. And people understood that you can manage a bunch of investments much better by looking at them through the lenses of a portfolio. And the decision patterns in portfolio are darn simple, because we only have buy or invest or hold or divest decision patterns. And the same applies here in our portfolio for government agencies and public sector companies. By and large, we take decisions, okay, should we make further investment? Should we stop investment? Or are we taking a neutral position? The difference to the financial investment portfolios is that it takes split seconds in financial investments to transact on a portfolio decision, while it takes typically minimum weeks, if not months, or in extreme cases, even years, to transact on a portfolio decision. And so many different portfolio decisions are being taken, one after the other. So what is important is that we retain knowledge about the portfolio decision that has been taken and is still in the process of being transacted. And the vehicle to making this knowledge stick, making this knowledge available for the organization, is what is being called a roadmap. So a roadmap is a key ingredient to lighting up portfolios and enabling sustainable decision-making for and in integrated portfolios. So now let's return to the 6 concerns that we had identified early on at the first slide. And let's look at them, how those 6 concerns can actually be delivered against with a portfolio management and planning solution like Alphabet. So let's start with cloud first. When you have a cloud first strategy, the first question you really would ask yourself is, okay, what are the services that would actually benefit from cloud? And would it be benefit because we are able to lower the costs? Or would it be benefit because we are able to breathe, to scale elastically? Or would it be benefit because we can deploy faster? Or would it be benefit because we can change faster? And what are the impacts of a cloud decision taken for one application here to the surroundings, to the context that is applicable to this application? The second one was, are we able to create economies of scale by centralizing and federating services? So this is the question, how far can we standardize the operating model across different government agencies? Can we perhaps consolidate applications to make them viable and useful for various entities? And can we perhaps start with gaining an understanding of the root causes for the variances that we have, to then determine whether these variances really provide for the improved user experience, for the improved service quality to the citizens that we are dealing with, or whether the result for those end users is fairly neutral, in which case we may as well level the field across these different usage scenarios. Improving user experience. So identify what are the citizen-centric services, understand what are the typical journeys that a citizen goes through when consuming this service or when leveraging this service or onboarding to this service, and from there deriving what the solutions should, or how the solutions should look like, and how those solutions can make sure that the user can consume this service at ease. Understand which of services would benefit most from mobile. So, of course, one could argue every of services, but clearly it is a matter of prioritization, and we still have a fair amount of services that would not lend themselves to a mobile environment. So what are the processes that have a particularly high affinity to mobile devices? What are the processes that have a high number of transactions and hence require consumption to be distributed and available in a distributed fashion? Can we then plan for a mobility layer being added to existing applications, or do we need to refactor those applications to actually be mobile enabled? And as we are looking into refactoring these applications, should we then perhaps look into finding a cloud solution that we can consume rather than building a new solution ourselves? And understand how that mobility requirement poses requirements to the backend technologies that we are using, and leveraging this as a way of looking into modernizing that portfolio of backend technologies. Then we talked about the risk perspective and how we can ward off cyber threats. So having an understanding of what the portfolios are and what are the different elements that we have in the portfolios will help us understand what are the vulnerabilities that we should be knowledgeable about. And that means translate vulnerabilities that are being discovered in the public space to their applicability for us as a government agency or a public sector company. And then implement risk mitigation plans that can either completely obsolete the risk or at least reduce it. And then lastly, we talked about how we can use portfolio management to modernize legacy systems, and that again means understand where are these legacy systems, which of customer interactions, citizen interactions, and business processes rely on these systems, and what are the options that we have in terms of retiring or further evolving those legacy applications. And that could be a hybrid modernization approach, because I might keep the back end of it, but then add a new front end to it. Or I add a relatively shallow application layer in front of the legacy systems. Now here's an example from the application itself. So understand where you need to change and how urgently you need to change could, for instance, be translated in, okay, what are the capabilities that make out the scope of the agency? Now, this is a utility environment here. So we talk about customer service, we talk about sales and marketing, we talk about generating energy, we talk about managing the life cycle of assets, we talk about the shared services that we require, and we talk about transmitting and distributing energy. And actually, this is a customer example from that space. So understand what the capabilities are that you have, and understand what their criticality is, and that you can see here is represented by the color. But we also want to understand what these capabilities are in terms of the drain that they have on the budget. So where is the spend? And we are showing the size of the boxes in this case as the spend that we have. And then lastly, we want to know how critical are these capabilities for us as an agency or public sector company. How critical are these for us in attaining strategy? And that is what has been shown here as the indicator. The fuller the moon, the more important the capability is for the strategy. And we can glean some very simple and straightforward understanding from this, where we see, okay, this probably is something that we should keep an eye on because it is very critical to us in the current operating model as well as for attaining strategy. And yes, we are spending quite a bit of money, but that probably is spent that is justified. While if we look at this one here, we can see it is not very critical today. It is not deemed very important for attaining strategy, and still we are spending quite a bit of money on it. And that means that would be a way to start looking into, okay, what are the ways for us to reduce the cost? Can we consolidate the portfolio? Can we re-platform and thereby reduce the headcount costs that we are incurring in running these things? Can we move this to the cloud? Can we find an outsourcing proposition or whatever the approaches may be that we can are able to come up with? So here's a couple of quotes from actual customers. The first two are focusing on what can you glean from the data if you have the data. Why is there value in having an eye on the data? And the first one is very interesting because, and actually this is a US-based hydroelectric power utility this quote is from. The first one actually talks about how that data was in scope even before. Only it was in scope in a different fashion. It would typically be managed through Outlook or Excel sheets. And while it was being done through these Microsoft Office capabilities, still there was a 3 full-time equivalent high rated employees that would be responsible to safekeeping, to shepherding, to managing the information. Now, with the introduction of Alphabet, that has been flipped to its feet by making the collection of information an automated process in and by itself. And it's a periodic process that is being complemented by ad hoc research inquiries. And to provide kind of guard railing for this process, now it is 2 college interns that are only spending 1/3 of their time, while before it was 3 full-time equivalent. And then what is it that you can glean from that information once you have the information available? There are a couple of examples on the right-hand side. So one of the things this company identified was, we have actually 9 different CRM solutions across our commercial customer space. And we don't actually believe that 9 is the right number. And we should aim to reduce it to 2, which they were successful in completing. And similarly, they managed to reduce the number of systems that are used to track physical assets from 14 to 3, simply because they understood that there was too little benefit in having each of asset types being tracked by a different system. Here's another example to share, and this is more about how can we know where to make investment and where to increase agility so that we know that this is the right decision in lieu of the strategy that we have set for ourselves. So you start off, for instance, by understanding how business processes are distributed across the organization, understand what are the technology and IT assets that each of these organizations for the specific business processes is relying upon, and understand their business criticality. And that means now you understand what are the assets that we should continue investing into, what are the assets that perhaps we should look into either outsourcing or replacing. And as a almost windfall profit to this, you have a great understanding of business continuity or service continuity. So here's an example from that hydropower company who now have an easy time understanding, okay, if a truck was to run into a transformer, we would immediately be able to understand what operations would be impacted at risk, and that means we now know how important is it to bring that transformer online, back online again. So when you want to understand that impact, you have, for instance, something like this business support map where you can see, okay, we are using this risk asset database in our risk management department for determining operational risk assessments. And that across the board will allow you to understand, okay, if something was to go down, what are the business processes and what are the organizational entities that will be impacted by such a disruption. Alphabet has been doing this for the past more than 10 years, and the Software AG with Alphabet has been recognized as a leader in this space many years over. This is just the latest incarnation of the Magic Quadrants for enterprise architecture and integrated portfolio analysis applications, and both demonstrate Software AG as leaders very clearly. And we are able to be leaders in that space because we have a unique way of bringing enterprise architecture, IT planning, and integrated portfolio management together. We are extending through business process analysis, governance, risk and compliance, project portfolio management, application portfolio management, IT finance, IT service management, et cetera, all the way, for instance, to IT sourcing. And that means you can reuse and leverage the same piece of information many times over, which makes the value that this piece of information has to the organization bigger and bigger, and which makes the attraction for the organization to be careful about this information more relevant. We are able to support the richest set of portfolios across the industry. And that isn't limited to just IT. We equally go into services, business capabilities, products, customer segments, markets, channels, et cetera. We also have a very broad range of coverage for vision across the enterprise. And that in particular goes into transformation programs that are digital in nature and that are distributed and federated across the organization. We have a very broad set of stakeholders that are supported with very specific views, functional scope, workflows, and tailored responsibilities. And we have very rich configuration capabilities that are certainly the most mature in the portfolio management market and can or support the product being marketable across both the enterprise market as well as the public sector market, as well as pretty much any industry. We have advanced and pushed the envelope, coming out with new methodology and modeling capabilities to, for instance, support journey mapping, provide touchpoint management, and understand how to automatically deduct process change requirements from the journey analysis one conducts. We have a patented master planning methodology that allows to abstract the planning conversation from the oftentimes agile-driven implementation approach into a more managerial area that allows setting targets and roadmaps with a longer-term vision and can be used to guide operational and tactical decisions very clearly. And it's an integral part of a digital business platform. The digital business platform, as Will has outlined it at the very beginning of our session today, and it empowers customers to actually attain digitization outcomes by bringing together the topics of business process analysis, governance, risk and compliance, enterprise architecture, strategic planning, portfolio management, and then linking it all the way into integration, process automation, adaptive and agile application development, analytics and decisions. So we are able to provide for a very rounded support in terms of attaining digital business visions. And if you were curious enough, we would recommend you take 10 minutes of your time to go through an online assessment, digital.softwareag.com, to gain an understanding of how fit you are across various dimensions, such as fit for transformation, fit for integration, fit for applications, fit for connectivity. This is based on a bunch of research that we have conducted initially with Forrester, and which is allowing you to measure up your maturity across these different dimensions and your preparedness for embracing digital in the years to come. So take a look and take some time here. And I guess with this, I'm done with my presentation today. I'm sorry for the technology hiccup that we had. And I would be curious to see whether there are any questions for the last few minutes.
Great. Thanks, Uli, very much. Yeah, we do have a couple of questions. So the first one that I want to pose to you, it seems like there's a lot of information to be captured in order to get the analysis you need from Alphabet. How is the information captured, and are there automated processes for support?
Very much so. And of course, this is very dependent on the information. Now, firstly, you don't need to have all the information from the beginning. It is clear that much of this information will only be created as you start moving along that path. Secondly, if you have even pieces and fractions of that information available today in any electronic form, we will be able to suck it up and bring it to life in Alphabet. Thirdly, you want to reach out to all the different people that are owners of this information today. You want to encourage them to sharing their information. And again, Alphabet has technology in the product that can support and enable you in being successful along this.
Great. Another question we have, can you explain a little bit more about how Alphabet supports cloud computing?
Very much so. Now, when we talk about cloud computing and Alphabet, we need to be aware that there's two aspects to it. Of course, one is Alphabet itself is available as a cloud solution. So if you determine that portfolio management planning, architecture management isn't something that you consider handling information that is core to the viability of your agency, you may as well put this up in the cloud. But then secondly, Alphabet is an enabler for you to be successful in your cloud strategy. And that means Alphabet is going to help you to determine where should I be looking at cloud as a way of providing solutions, and what should be the form that I provide my cloud solutions. Should it be SaaS? Should it be PaaS? Should it be IaaS? It would also allow you to track your success and your progress against the goals that you have set for yourself with regard to cloud. And we would also enable you to start building those cloud solutions and the architecture of such cloud solutions in Alphabet, and then passing it on for implementation.
Okay, and there's one other question that I want to pose. The question is, do you have any other views that can be used for everyone from senior management to sub-portfolios, and how configurable is it?
Okay, now the good news or the bad news, depending how you look at it, is Alphabet ships with more than 1,000 views. And all of them have been proven by hundreds of customers. It also comes with a very rich reporting environment that allow you to build reports and views yourself. And all this is part of a configuration capability that allows you to custom tailor what we call user profiles that make sure the right constituency is seeing the right information at the right time in the right context. And all this is done in a codeless fashion, meaning through user interfaces and typically with a few mouse clicks. So the answer is yes, yes, and yes.
Okay, great. Okay, Uli, thank you very much for your time and your presentation today. To everybody who has joined us this afternoon, thank you for joining us. Thanks for the patience for the momentary blackout we had. And just a reminder to stay abreast of all of our webcast programs. You can find them at softwareag.com/webinars. With that, our program is over. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Goodbye.